what I wanted to do here today, if that's okay for you,
Yeah.
is actually we're doing these kind of interview series.
Mhm.
And the idea of the interview series is not commercial, so it's not the idea that we're going to talk about in 2.0, but just to talk to some people that have experience with HR experiments, with HR projects, so they can bring inspiration to other HR managers. So Miguel, we talked about capabilities and how you do strategic workforce planning to get to the right capabilities. But then the question is, do you also do something special to source those capabilities internally? Maybe people that want to change jobs, those kind of things.
Yeah, I think what we are very clear on is which are the capabilities you can build from within and which ones you have to definitely buy. So for example, we build a phenomenal digital team in PepsiCo in Europe. And it's a team that has allowed us to go to different channels, exploiting e-commerce, even having new product propositions. We just launched to Infinity, which is a phenomenal product that it's online only and it's business to consumers. I mean, we didn't have that expertise before. So we went to the market and bought that expertise and build the team. Now, in the case of key account management, that's a build, and we build that expertise with people that have commercial acumen that want to grow in the organization, but need to get better at how they manage key accounts and the sophistication of the new key accounts. And that's where we build them with capabilities, with exposure, with critical experience, so they can be, the next key account managers of the future. So net, we need to be very clear on what we can grow from within and what we need to definitely bring from the outside. And that's a mixture that we are constantly kind of fine-tuning.
Yeah, I get that. It's not easy, probably, because you also need to know what people want, right? Like if we turn it around and think of it from the employee's perspective, they want this sort of career track. Do you have some sort of systems or processes or approaches in place to help them with, looking to the side as well, instead of just wanting to become a manager? That could maybe help your strategic workforce planning capability building in the end as well.
So our career philosophy is that employees own the career, and then they have a partnership with the manager and the organization that provides the different tools. So most of our career philosophy is based on critical experiences. So what we've done is we've coded critical experiences, and in some way, people can say, okay, if I want to achieve this role, these are the type of critical experiences I need to have to achieve that role. Some of the critical experiences are functional, specific to one function. Others are more in terms of managing people, leader, teams, processes, and others are more in terms of breadth building. So, for example, a good example is a headquarter role versus a field role. And we believe that by crafting the right experiences, then is how you grow in the organization. And that's a little bit the roadmap for careers within PepsiCo.
Oh, that's pretty interesting, those experiences. Do you craft them together with the managers? Do you leave it entirely up to the manager, or is this an HR thing, these experiences?
No, so what we've done is we partner with all the functions to define the functional component. Then we with all the leadership in the company, we define which are the people one and the brothering one. That's available for everyone. And then what we do is every May, we have what we call candid career conversations, where managers and employees talk about development. And within those conversations, they focus, okay, what are the critical experiences that I'm gaining now? Which are the ones that I need in the future if I want to achieve certain roles?
Oh, yeah. And do you still have competencies in there somewhere, or are the experiences really about being exposed to real life experience? And not necessarily you need to be good in negotiation and in B and C and D. Where do you stand on competencies?
So I think we have a hybrid model. We have leadership competencies because I think from a behavioral perspective, it's easier to code what you mean by leadership, no?
Yeah.
But leadership doesn't mean only senior leaders. Even if you're an individual contributor, you have certain behaviors that you need to demonstrate as a leader. And we believe in PepsiCo in leaders at all levels. Now, the critical experience is a much more broad concept. It has a functional component, but it is true experiences that you gain through your career that we have codified in a way that make you successful in the future. So if we take a general manager, we say, okay, to be a general manager, these are the 10 critical experiences that you should have had in order to be successful.
It's a very interesting concept to me. Like if I wanted to become the VP of talent for EMEA and South Africa, I understood.
Yeah.
What would be one of the experiences that I should have had?
Well, I would say from a functional perspective, early in your career, you should have had as broad experiences as you can.
Oh yeah, preferably some business experience as well. So
yeah, but very early on in your career, what I tell everyone in HR is try to have as many functional experiences as you can, and those are easy to get early on in your career. So do a comp and bend role, do a talent acquisition role, do a talent management role, do a cultural role, do a learning role. If you can mix those experiences early on in your career. And then, of course, you will have some local experience, but you will need some headquarter experience, how you gain that. In the meantime, it's interesting. You can have business partnering roles, but you need to create like a cradle of functional people and broadening experience that take you to be successful in this role. Some of the things we notice sometimes, there's a struggle of people that have had big functional geographical roles to do a headquarter role. So how we help them make that transition is also important. So the critical experience framework also helps us to be aware of where the transitions can be more painful and help employee make those transitions.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you talk about experiences, let's zoom in on those, employee experiences, the experiences that an employee has while they work for PepsiCo, basically. Do you have any digital support, or are you doing any digital projects around making it easier for a manager to manage, making it easier for employees to log stuff, maybe to, do whatever kind of HR tools you would normally have to increase the employee experience? Do you have projects like that?
So we have a tool to capture the experiences that people have had, and we have a tool to capture the ones that are needed in the future.
Okay.
So again, when managers and employees have these conversations, they map, of course, the critical experience that these individuals have had, but also if they aspire to whatever role, these are the 2 or 3 things you need to be working on. And then it's between the employee and the manager as a broker to find those critical experiences to grow within the organization.
Yeah, and so we already talked about HR changing. There's this strategic fit that they need to take into account. They have to become enabler of the business instead of just like a cost center, is basically your previous point. Are there other things that are changing in HR that you see? Other advice that you would have?
No, I think, for me, there are 3 things we're always looking at. It's what is the fit of everything we do in HR with the business strategy, and you always need to review that. But most importantly, what culture are you building with the HR interventions you're having? So that's a constant look and dialogue that we have. I think the second component is, with the pace of change, how you make interactions much more frequent. So how you do engagement surveys. We move from 1 every 2 years to checking the pulse of the organization every quarter. We move from annual performance management that were very paper-based and cumbersome to much more frequent touch points between manager and employee, also supported by feedback from other stakeholders and a more 360 view of the performance of these individuals and of the behaviors. So I think we are leveraging technology to have a more frequent dialogue, a more frequent interactions with managers, employees, and the organization as a whole. So, frequency, it's very important.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of HR people that want to experiment with technology, that want to experiment with increased frequency and increased dashboarding. Do you have any advice for them?
I think it depends on the size of the organization.
Yeah.
In our case, what we do is we always do pilots. So we do a pilot and we test an idea in a pilot, which we did in the case of performance management. And then we have a control group, and we do a series of analysis between, the control group that is using the old tools with the new a team that is using the new tools, and see the differences between the groups, and then we do adjustments if we want to roll it further. So in a nutshell, I will always start with a control pilot.
Yeah, and what did you learn in the, let's say, performance management pilot, for example? What were like the key learnings
so
there?
2 or 3 takeaways is that definitely people like the frequency of the interactions with the managers. They like input from other people. They wanted transparency on who were providing that feedback. And, we did 2 tests, one with transparency, one without transparency. And still they gave us feedback that there's more, let's say, paperwork or digital paperwork that we need to cut out. So that's what we're doing for phase 2 of the rollout.
Okay, so even more simple.
Yes.
And what are the most important concepts you have in there? So people can give feedback. There's a specific moment that managers can plan with employees to have a sit down. Anything else that's in there? Or is that basically it for performance?
No, I would say also what we call the network survey, where they get input from other stakeholders. So you have a more rich view of the employee's performance. And we do that through an app. It's very easy to use. So it's a quick way to understand how employees are impacting with other stakeholders. And then also we put a lot of emphasis on the quality of the conversations that happen between the manager and the employee, and then try to streamline the whole process to just free time for manager and employees to have those conversations.
Oh yeah, and how do you create that capability within the managers? Is that included in your leadership tracks now, or was it always like this is how you coach, this is how you give feedback?
Yeah, I think that I would say in PepsiCo we have good manager quality, and I think there's always areas to improve. We've coached managers to have these conversations, and we continue to do it. And now that they have it more frequency, probably we need to coach them even more. But I think in general, if the conversations are more frequent, then the dialogue is more open, and it helps both sides.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. How about your payment structure? Because a lot of companies, definitely your size, have a direct link between the performance management process and how people are paid. Did you make that cut?
No, I think PepsiCo is a very performance-driven organization. Yeah. So that's part of our DNA. We wouldn't do that because it would hurt the culture of the company in some way. So that's a positive reinforcer of our culture.
And does the data from the feedback and the manager sit-downs, does it feed into that, or is that a separate process?
No. It's a very interlinked process. Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, then we talked about HR needs to be more frequent, or needs to measure things more frequently, needs to be more tech-enabled, needs to make sure that there's a strategic fit. Do you feel like HR departments should organize themselves differently, more agile in a way, or do you feel like that's fine right now?
Well, it depends how they are based. I think the concept of having a back office that does the transactions more efficiently and more effectively, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that should happen. So you should have a very lean organization to do everything that is back office. Mm-hmm. And then I think you need a couple of teams, one that are more the business-facing teams, that are the ones that understand the dynamics and the issues at the business level. And probably you need 2 or 3 centers of excellence or areas to develop the interventions that then will be deployed. I think that's kind of the model many companies are going to. And like any model, it has its positives and negatives, but I think it's a good model.
And are you guys moving towards a way more project-based approach in HR, or are you still sticking to a recruitment manager, talent manager, performance management manager, et cetera, very functional divide of the tasks?
Well, I think when there's repetition of tasks, it's good to be focused on tasks. So if you're a recruiter and you're recruiting, 100 people a year, it makes sense that you you do that in a flawless way. Now, when you're defining interventions, when you're creating new programs, then that's, of course, a project-based approach, because it's the nature of the task at hand. No? So I wouldn't say it's so much what you do, is what is the nature of the work to be done that then define if you're a project organization or you're a process organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's clear. And so maybe to finalize, we've heard a lot of cool stuff, inspirational stuff. What if I'm an HR manager and there's a ton of things I could do? I could maybe look at my performance management system, become more frequent in my engagement surveys, look at the company's strategy to see what kind of projects I can launch, building capabilities, leadership tracks. What if I'm at all and my HR department has still got to do everything? What do you feel I should do first right now, just to make sure that HR can deliver that value that it needs to? What should come first?
Well, I would map everything you're doing against the strategy and the culture you want to build. And once you have that mapping and you have the dialogue with the business, then you can say, hey, these are the things we need to stop doing, and these are the things we need to start doing, and then create a plan to do that. The first thing I would do is match everything you're doing to your business strategy and the culture you want to build.
Yep, that makes total sense. Start by making a plan. Don't just deep dive. Although I think with experimenting, you can definitely try to see which things you can, you have to change with the business before you make that elaborate plan. Good. Miguel, I'd like to thank you for your time, for your interview. Any last piece of advice you'd want to give to HR maybe? Or you feel like you've said it all already?
No, I think I covered most of the areas, and the only last piece of advice is to be very open and always think why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, start with why. It's a good one. Okay, thank you, Miguel.
Okay, thank you. We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you.